Hello again, Year 8. This is your next lesson, lesson number 4 for Chemistry on Earth. And you've got an option to do a practical at home later on during this presentation. But your first task you'll do now is to have a look at these two diagrams. There are an animal and a plant cell. Kindly, I've labelled which one is which. As you can see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 boxes, each of which applies to labels. If you look at them, there are arrows from the boxes to the organelles within the cells. Some of these boxes have an arrow to both the plant and the animal cell because they are organelles which both of those have. Some of them only have an arrow to one type of cell. So look at it carefully. I would suggest that you freeze the screen while you answer this. Right, here are your answers. I put them in colour to make it easy to see. So the tiny little dots are ribosomes. The large blue solid shape is the nucleus, which contains the DNA, because these are both eukaryotic cells. Around the outside of the cell, the animal cell, we've got the cell membrane. This is the inner of two layers around the outside of the plant cell. Plant cell also has the cell wall outside the cell membrane. Both cells contain mitochondria. The plant cell also has a really big grey area, which is labelled as a vacuole, and it also has green organelles called chloroplasts. We'll do a little bit of revision about these and what happens in them later on during this lesson. Here are your objectives for this week. You need to know the word equations for photosynthesis, aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. These are 3 equations, but they're not too tricky when you get down to it. You'll find out why later on. You'll need to know the locations of the reactions, in other words, where in the cell they happen, and what the purpose for the reaction is, why it happens. You have got a home investigation to do into photosynthesis, and you need to compare aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Not quite as tricky as it sounds. Do not fret, we'll cover it all in good time. So, first things first, photosynthesis. Photo means light, synthesis means making, so it means making from light. In a plant cell, we've got a much more detailed diagram one here. You don't need to know all these organelles, but just a nicely diagram one. Plants and algae are called producers. That is because they produce their own food. They make it. They don't eat it by ingesting another organism. They make their own food. This occurs in the chloroplast, which are these green structures here within the cell. This is the whole cell. The green structures inside it are chloroplasts. They're filled with the green pigment called chlorophyll. Easy to remember, they're filled with chlorophyll. This reaction needs light as a catalyst, so it will only happen in the daytime. It is an endothermic reaction. It requires energy for the reaction to happen. Quite straightforward so far. Now, here is the word equation. Absolutely everybody needs to know this. This is something that goes all the way through to GCSE, and you need to learn it. You need to know that carbon dioxide and water, these are the reactants, these are what happened. It doesn't matter which order, so it could be carbon dioxide plus water, or you could actually put water plus carbon dioxide. Have a reaction that makes, and the arrow only goes in one direction, so it's not reversible, glucose and oxygen as products. Again, those can be either order, so it could be oxygen and glucose. Now, if you want to get yourself ahead for GCSE Science and you want to revise balancing equations, which we have been doing previously this term, you have CO2 is carbon dioxide, and you have 6 molecules of that. See the blue number 6 in front? Tell you the 6 of everything, 6 of those molecules. We have water, H2O. I know you all know that already. You again have 6 molecules of that. This is quite easy. You've got a 6 and a 6. Only one number to remember. Trickiest formula here is glucose, which is C6H12O6. You start to spot there's a lot of 6's in this, or 6 multiples. 12 is just 2 lots of 6, so it makes it a bit easier again. And oxygen, O2, there's 6 molecules of that. So the only thing there isn't 6 of is glucose, which is the larger molecule. Not too tricky. Must, as I say, know the words. If you want to learn the formulas as well, that will put you ahead if you're feeling a bit sneaky. Right, when you're writing those down, you will need to pause the video. Okay, your home investigation. Check with an adult first so that you're not spoiling their most important plant. Find a plant to use. It could be a plant in the garden, it could be a seedling. If you've got a pot of herbs on a windowsill, you could use that. You don't have to have a garden. Cover one leaf of the plant with something. I would suggest perhaps tin foil. Paper might not work if you put it outside and then it decides to rain on it. Cling film won't work because it will let light through. You need to cover it so that light won't reach it. Leave that leaf for 2 or 3 days completely covered up. Try to avoid the temptation to have a little look and see what's happening. After 2 to 3 days, take the cover off and see how the colour of that leaf compares to the other leaves that have been in the sun. And send me a photo on Teams to show me what you found and why you think you found it. So put a sentence with it, please. Okay, it's fairly straightforward. It doesn't matter if it's this leaf or you could choose one of the others. Probably better to choose a leaf that's not actively growing though, because otherwise it may outgrow your cover. So that will show you changes that occur when photosynthesis can happen in the sunlight, when it can't because a plant is not in sunlight. You might see it as well with emerging seeds. Right. Respiration. This is one of the key life processes for all living organisms. It happens in the mitochondria. Okay, now those look like little pink blobs here, but they actually have lots and lots of folds in them to increase the surface area. Larger surface area means more reaction. And respiration is the breaking down of glucose molecules into smaller molecules. And as they break down, energy is released. Bonds are broken, energy is released. And it's an exothermic reaction. It releases energy. It can make things feel hot. Now, the big mistake that lots of people make is they think respiring is the same as breathing. Breathing is not. Breathing is the movement of air in the lungs. It's just moving air in and out of your body and exchanging where the exchange between oxygen and carbon dioxide happens. Respiration is the breaking down of glucose. It happens in cells. Do not get them confused. Now, there are 2 types of respiration. Aerobic respiration, a bit of a tongue twister there, sorry guys, occurs with oxygen. Think about aerobics are exercises that some people do where they get very hot, they use lots of oxygen, they breathe. Okay, it's an energy provider, and oxygen and glucose make carbon dioxide and water. This is exactly the same substances as photosynthesis, but the direction is reversed. So we start off with what would be the products of photosynthesis, and we make what would be the reactants for photosynthesis, but they're not here. But it does mean it's easy to remember because you've still got the same 4 substances, a different order. During exercise, your cells need more oxygen, so breathing increases. And during exercise, cells need more glucose, so you get hungry, or you use energy from our fat stores. Now this is tying in really nicely with it being Sports Month this month, I think. Because respiration is exothermic, our bodies get hotter, and we produce lots of water, and that means that we sweat. Lovely. Nobody will forget the sweating. If you remember the sweat is mainly water, then we're on the way to remember which way around this equation goes. So this is aerobic respiration in air. Okay, in air meaning with oxygen. And the oxygen is there in the equation to help us out. If we don't have oxygen, we get something different. Some organisms live in places where there is little oxygen. For example, yeast is a microbe, and that will break down glucose and give alcohol and carbon dioxide. Got your attention now because the word alcohol is in there. This is called fermentation. Now, this is actually used to make beer and wine. Now, you know that they both have alcohol in it, and if you've seen the bubbly head on the top of some beer, that's obviously the carbon dioxide in there as well. Now, during exercise, our bodies can become short of oxygen. We're breathing a lot, but we might need more than we've got. And if that happens, then we go into something called anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic means an in front means without. It's a little bit like but it's an an in science. A-N, not U-N. So make sure you get that spelling right, please, guys. And this time, you won't end up with the usual water that you have. You'll end up with lactic acid. Now, if you've ever had a cramp in your leg or a stitch when you've been exercising really hard, oh, that really hurts. That is because lactic acid has built up in your muscles. So, ouch, lactic acid. Now, to summarise what you've learnt, I want you to do a little diagram. Now, you might need to stop the video here to copy it down. You've got the two processes in the ovals. You've got aerobic respiration with oxygen, so you've got your O2 here. Looks a little bit like blood cells, but it is an O2 molecule. Anaerobic, no oxygen, you've got an X through it. Things that are the same and things that are different. So things that are the same in the middle, things that are different either side. It's a little bit similar to drawing a Venn diagram in maths, but possibly a little bit easier for some of us to understand. Okay, now balancing life on Earth. This is really, really important, and I know that you actually know quite a lot about this already. We already know that plants are the first link in all food chains. They're called the producers because they produce their own food, and then everything else either eats the plants to get the food from them, or eats the animals that have previously eaten the plants to get the food passed up the food chain. Now, we know that plants balance gases in the atmosphere because we can see that they take in carbon dioxide and they produce oxygen. And that is the oxygen that we breathe. So we need to be in balance with plants. The first time this was demonstrated was back in the 1700s by a scientist called Joseph Priestley. And what he did was he put a mouse in a sealed box with the candle burning. I'm assuming the box was metal rather than cardboard for fairly obvious reasons. Now, because it's sealed, there'll only be a certain amount of oxygen then. And after a while, once the mouse will be using the oxygen to breathe, the candle will be using the oxygen to burn. And when the oxygen has been used completely, the flame will go out and sadly the mouse will die. Now, if you modify this slightly, you have a mouse and a burning candle and a plant which is going through photosynthesis, taking carbon dioxide, releasing oxygen, you will find that the flame can stay lit and the mouse will stay alive because the mouse will be and the flame and the candle will both be using up oxygen. However, the oxygen will be continuously replaced by the plant, and the carbon dioxide they both produce will be used up by the plant. And today we have a similar situation, but instead of having lots of candles burning, we have lots of petrol-powered cars and lots of power stations that are actually using up oxygen in combustion. So you can think for yourselves how important trees are to balance things out in the world. Now, here we go. We're very nearly there. You're doing really well, Year 8. You have got a check your understanding video. I have to give you a warning. A jelly baby does get hurt in this video. This is a demonstration of a practical. Obviously, you cannot do it at home, but you can watch the video, make some notes. You do have a home task to do, which is to make 4 cards. You don't need to have a fancy card for this. You can have a cereal box that you cut up. Label each of them with the 4 substances that are involved in photosynthesis and respiration. You should already have those in your notes. Put them upside down on the table. Flip them over and time yourself to see how quickly you can make the equation for photosynthesis. You might want to make yourself an arrow as well. You can make it from ribbon, you can make it from spaghetti, you can make it from another piece of card. How quickly can you swap it to respiration? If you do it several times, can you improve your time? Send me a video and we will see who is the card flip champion of Year 8. The winner will get our clue. So, you have got some notes to make, you have got a home practical to do with photosynthesis, you have got a demonstration practical to watch involving a jelly baby, and you've got some cards to make to practice learning the equation. Lots to do. You know how to reach me if you've got any questions. Have a good week. Look forward to seeing your videos, Year 8. Bye for now.